Hi guys, sorry I'm bringing you two wrap-up videos in a row. I'm feeling a bit out of video ideas at the moment. Whenever I try to brainstorm new video ideas, my mind just goes blank. I do have a vlog of a little reading project in the making, but that is going to take a while yet. So in the meantime, here is a wrap-up of the books that I read since my last update video. I have non-fiction in this stack, modern classics, romance, and even another attempt at German contemporary fiction. The result might surprise you. Let's start with another winter read that I read, which wasn't on my winter reading TBR because I didn't know about it then. I saw it on Lauren and the Books' channel in late December, and it sounded so good that I rushed out immediately and ordered a copy. It was The Woods in Winter by Stella Gibbons, the author of Cold Comfort Farm. This is the story of a curmudgeonly, late middle-aged, thrice widowed charwoman from London with a slight witch gift who inherits a house, or a cottage really, in her native Buckinghamshire and moves there and begins a new life there, and in the process brings new life to ye old neighborhood. This sounds amazing, but right away, right from the beginning, I was put off by the omniscient narrator who flits from character to character, each character that the protagonist Ivy meets, and always tells us exactly what each character thinks, in particular about Ivy. And I just think that made everything extremely boring. I would much have preferred Ivy's point of view to be the only point of view, and would have preferred if the actions of the characters spoke for themselves. Then again, I don't know if there was ever any way to actually make these characters interesting. Look, if you are dead set on writing a Dickensian novel in the year 1970, you better make really sure that your characters are actual characters. And something else that bothered me. So I'm usually a fan of realistic renditions, phonetic renditions of accents and dialects in fiction. However, in this case, this resulted in half of every page being apostrophes, because nobody ever pronounces the H. And it became just too much. It became unreadable to me. I would have preferred if Stella Gibbons had just dropped the H without an apostrophe as a substitute. But then again, I don't know if it would have helped much. I think it was just too much in general. I think this is a stylistic device that needs to be employed in a measured way. I think I gave it 50 or 60 pages and then I abandoned it, and I've already resold it. So this has taught me, or retaught me really, not to rush off and buy every book, especially every English language book that I see on BookTube. I did, however, have great success with a Hungarian book that I was recommended on Instagram. It is Embers by Sandor Marai. This is the German translation, and in fact, I've heard that the English translation wasn't done directly from the Hungarian original, but was in fact done from the German translation, which of course makes it an abomination, especially since reading the translation, I got the feeling, the suspicion, that the original must have felt much more poetic than the translation. But that is, of course, a speculation on my part. So this is set in 1940 in a manor house in rural Hungary, in which an elderly general from the military nobility of the defunct Habsburg Empire welcomes as a dinner guest his old best friend, whom he hasn't seen in 40 years, not since his friend left the country after some mysterious event that took place at the general's house, and which put a sudden end to their friendship. But now he's back, and the host, the general, has been waiting for this moment for half a lifetime. He has all but entombed himself in his house and has stopped interacting with the rest of the world. But now the moment has come, the moment that he's been waiting for and has been rehearsing for years. This dinner at which he is going to serve his guest the speech of a lifetime. It's his bill of indictment as well as his closing argument, because he is going to tell his former friend that he knows everything. Not just what happened 40 years ago, but he knows him inside out. He has seen through everything. The past is finally crystal clear to him, and so is his friend's soul. This was just overall painful to read. It's like watching a therapy session unfold, or being the therapist listening to the guy on the sofa going on, and in the process making it very clear where his issues stem from and what his issues have gained him. Late last autumn, I made a video about quiet books and quietly devastating books. And if I had already known this book at the time, it would definitely have been featured in that video. And then, as a little palate cleanser, I read the holiday romance novella The 12 Days Ultimatum by Josh Lanyon. And no, I wasn't late in reading this. She only just published it at the end of January. I'm afraid this was a little bit of nothing. It's not much of a story, it's a bit lackluster. I'm thinking of making a recommendation video about Josh Lanyon's books and which of them I would recommend picking up. And then we have the German novel Das finstere Tal, The Darkest Valley by Thomas Willmann. In the later half of the 19th century, a strange man in his 30s arrives in a small, isolated village in a high valley in the Bavarian Alps one late autumn day, and he seeks accommodation there for the winter because he says he'd like to spend some months there painting the landscape. He is set up with a widow and her young daughter, but people in the village are very wary of outsiders, especially the man of the big farming family who runs the show in the valley. And turns out they are right to be concerned and wary. This is sold to the reader as a Western set in the Alps, and it definitely draws a lot from the Western tradition. Set pieces, the general high-tension atmosphere, and the isolated setting. And there are also some explicit homages, really. There is a flashback which literally takes place in the Wild West, on a trek to the West in America. And there is a character there who claims to be a judge, and he is called Holden. But I think that the setting, this isolated high valley in the Bavarian Alps back in the 19th century, just has so much similarity with the Western setting that the similarities might as well have been incidental. Needless to say, it's a setting that I absolutely love, and it is extremely well realized in this book. The setting is really vividly brought to life, and the sense of place virtually leaps from the pages. It is written in a gorgeous, flowery, somewhat idiosyncratic prose, which fits the setting extremely well too. All that being said, I don't think it's a great book. It has some major structural problems. The first one being that I think it took a little too long in going in the direction in which it was ultimately going to go. For a very long time, maybe even half the book, the only real clues as to where we are going to go with this are metatextual. So it wasn't completely the text itself that managed to keep me hooked, but more the promise of what I was going to get out of it in the end, which came not from within the text itself. And it just shouldn't be that way. And then there is a backstory that we get told, the backstory that ultimately led up to the events that now take place in the High Valley. And this backstory is told in almost one complete and very extensive go. It's literally over 100 pages altogether. And I think it should have been interspersed more evenly, more deftly in the main story. It should have been, there should have been trigger moments in the story that triggered flashbacks for the main character, for instance, or the main character could have told parts of the backstory to other characters. This is difficult to do in this situation that unfolds in the book, but it still should have been done in a more elegant way than just the narrator telling us the backstory. So altogether, this makes it a good book, an entertaining one, a well-written one as far as prose style is concerned, but not one that is masterfully done. But still one that I would definitely recommend. And finally, I have two sad DNFs, and they were both non-fiction. The first one is Rheinaufwärts, Upriver Along the Rhine by Franz Hohler. This was an impulse buy when I found it as a scratch and dent copy at half price, and I'm glad I didn't pay more for it. This is a journal of a journey along the River Rhine on foot by the author from Lake Constance to the source in several stages. So not a through hike, but the author walks one stage, takes the train back home, and then several weeks or even months later, again takes a train to the station at which he stopped the last time and will then walk the next stage. And this is a very common way in Europe to walk long distance trails, because oftentimes those trails will run parallel to railway lines. And the author, Franz Hohler, chronicles what he sees along the way and some of the places that he walks through or walks past. The book splashes and burbles along rather than sweeping you away. It's no wild, it's no I'm off then, ich bin dann mal weg, which is a very famous German travelogue of the Way of St. James. And it definitely is no Robert Macfarlane, who is the master against whose work I measure everything and anything nature and place writing that I come across. The best you can say about the book is that it is unpretentious, but in this case, I'm afraid it is rather a backhanded compliment. I'm convinced, to be honest, that this only got published because the author Franz Hohler is already a household name in Switzerland. If an unknown person had tried to offer this to a publisher, they'd have been laughed out of the room. I threw it out of the room about 2/3 of the way in. And the other non-fiction DNF is Winter World by Bernd Heinrich. The subheading says it all, what it's all about. The subheading is the ingenuity of animal survival in cold climates or during the cold season. While not overtly a memoir or a journal-style kind of report, this is the kind of non-fiction book that is written for people who need anecdotes and journal entry type episodes interspersed in their science, and who needed to feel relatable of some sort in order to be readable. And I'm not that kind of person. I expect a little more rigor from my non-fiction book, especially when it comes to the natural sciences. And I just didn't have patience for this book. But to end on a positive note, I'm currently still reading slowly and enjoying The Witchwood Crown. I'm enjoying it now that I am 162 pages in. It was a bit of a slow start, and it's still slow going for me because I find the paperback still virtually unreadable. I mean, look at the format of this thing. There are a million words on each page, and the lines go on and on and on and almost into the fold. And on top of that, the paper is extremely coarse. So when I read it at night with the light from my bedside table lamp coming from the sides, the pores will all throw shadows and it's almost impossible to decipher the writing. So I've had to resort to downloading the ebook. I found the ebooks of the third and fourth books in the series at a discount price, but I had to pay €4 for the Witchwood Crown. And so now this has become the book that I read during my commute to work. And to be honest, this is not the way I want to be reading an Osten art fantasy book. So this has put a little damper on the reading experience. But yeah, I wanted to, this is published by Hohler, by the way, so I wanted to name them and shame them and warn you about it. So if you're interested in this book, I'd recommend getting a different edition. As for the story, at the moment I'm hesitant to say anything because I feel like all that I could say about it would be a spoiler for Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, because I mean, reading Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, I wouldn't even have wanted to know who lives and who dies. And all the characters, the surviving characters from Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, are still featured in this book and are major protagonists too. So everything that I could say would be a spoiler, I fear. So I am going to hold back with comments on the story until I've read the book and can talk in broader, more general terms about how I feel about it. So this is it for this reading update. As you could see, I've had quite a few DNFs or bad luck with quite a few books, but there were also some gems in there. I absolutely loved reading The Darkest Valley, even though it had some structural problems. And I also absolutely loved Sandor Marai's Embers, Die Glut in German. And I'm definitely interested in picking up more books by this author. If you have any recommendations, I'd be grateful if you left them in the comments, and I'd see you again very soon, this time with a themed video, hopefully. Bye guys, take care.